Good morning, Zanzi. Happy New Year. The year just started now. It's 2026. I hope you all are well. You have started with your, what do we call, year plans, year goals, and so forth. So, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and like and comment so that others can recognize this video. And this video will be discussing mostly possible careers that you can pursue when you hold a degree in chemical engineering or metallurgical engineering. So the first one that I'm going to start with is process design engineer. A process design engineer is responsible for the drafting of a process plant. Before a project can exist, we call them brownfield projects, where a process engineer has to go to that space where they're going to build a plant. And they want to understand the client's objectives first. What kind of product, what kind of material do you want to produce, and what specifications are thereof existing. So they start mostly with what do we call block flow diagrams. Block flow diagrams, they start with sequential block flow diagrams to see different segments or processes that can take place on various stages of the project. And during the block flow diagrams, they only have the sequential view of how the plant will operate in terms of blocks, but they don't have enough knowledge in terms of what kinds of equipment will be placed on a certain segment, what kinds of instrumentations will be attached to those instruments and thereof. So process design engineers, they start from block flow diagrams, and they are also responsible for what do we call processing or drafting of process descriptions. We cannot operate, or you can't have a process plant without its description. A description, it tells into details how the material will be processed, starting from the initial stage, from the raw materials, the conditions of the material at every particular point, the pressure, everything. So it's very detrimental for a process design engineer to draft what we call a process description. So after block flow diagrams, they go to process descriptions, and from process descriptions, once it's approved, after review meetings, they can start to develop what do we call a process or piping and instrumentation diagrams, P&IDs. Piping and instrumentation diagrams um, are mostly drafted or developed by a series of engineers, a group of engineers. First of all, obviously, you're gonna have your process design engineer to actually submit their proposed block flow diagrams and process descriptions, and also their design of basis. We have what we call a design of basis. A design of basis is a document mostly that you use as a reference to your design, and it consists of the organization's what do we call specifications that you can use as a reference. For instance, when you need a pressure, you go to it to see for a certain sector which pressure margin can I use, what kind of valve can I incorporate here and then so forth. And they now submit those things to mechanical engineers. Mechanical engineers, they do a lot of work in design, guys. They start by selecting the kind of equipments that you're gonna use for processing that particular material, whether it's petrochemical, whether it's mining, whether it's any other form of manufacturing, what do we call, material that you guys are processing. So mechanical engineers, they start designing the equipment from scratch to see whether it can be viable to use a particular, what do we call, instrument, or a particular equipment for a certain stage of a project. So they constantly go back to process design engineers to for reference and for advice to saying, why did you actually choose this certain equipment on your process description? And they start liaising together, they start discussing things together to say, what can be viable for them to what do we call, finish the PNIDs. Once the PNIDs are done, they need to have what do we call a review meeting so that they can approve every little detail that is on that particular drawing. It needs to be approved, whether it's a line, whether it's a dimension, whether it's an instrument, whether it's an equipment, whether it's every little detail that appears on a PNIDs, it needs to be approved by the whole team of engineers from the client side as well as from the internal side of the organization. So it's a very most rewarding, and in terms of gaining experience, process design engineers is a top notch. Top notch. I highly recommend for the young graduates that are entering to actually start to focus or target those kind of positions, process design engineers. And the second one, we have what do we call process control engineers. Process control engineers, they're mostly situated in operations. You find them in a manufacturing firm, or you find them in what do we call mining sectors. When an operations, when a shift starts, it starts with different kinds of people. You have your shift supervisor, you have your operator of the machine, you have your technicians around, whether it's electrical and mechanical, that form under maintenance, and you have other people that working generally inside a department and so forth. But the most important person that needs to be hired on that particular area, we have what we call process control engineers. Process control engineers, they work hand in hand with the operator. They monitor the plant, they take data regularly to see how the process is operating after a particular run or after a particular round and so forth. So they study the behavior of the process as the material is being processed. So they accumulate a whole lot of data, whether on a daily basis, on a shift basis, on a weekly basis. Therefore, they are able to develop trends to saying, whenever we are running this kind of material, we can already forecast what can happen in terms of the quality, in terms of the output that we get on that particular run. So process control engineers, they are the most important because they are like security guards on our process. So in most cases, you find that they work shift to shift basis because you need them 24 hours on the plant, and they are there to supplement and to also give guidance to the operators. Remember, most of the operators, they were mostly hired because they've been there for quite a long time and they don't know the technicality of a process. But having someone who holds either a national diploma in chemical engineering can actually give light to the operation of an equipment. They can also give guidance in terms of improving the lines. You know, when the material is going through the lines, process control engineers, they are therefore to help you with guidance. So it's one of the rewarding also possible career that you can follow, because you can also help in improvement. So it's easy to become an asset when you are a process control engineer, because you know everything. You know everything. No one can tell you about anything about a certain process, because you are there every day. You are there to collect data. You have engaged, you have touched the machine with your hands, you have tried to operate. So there's nothing that can go wrong with you not being an asset for that particular company. The other one that mostly exists is what we call a manufacturing engineer. Manufacturing engineer, they work closely with the process control engineers. But manufacturing engineers, they are mostly related on improvement projects. They are manufacturing the whatever material that you guys are processing, but they are mostly on research. They are based mostly on research. So whenever there's a problem on a machine or there's a problem on the material, they will try to identify the possible causes of that debottlenecking of the plant. So they will mostly take samples and maybe spend time in the laboratory, or they will take data from the maintenance to actually analyze the downtimes of the plant. And in most cases, they work hand in hand with industrial engineers because they are there to actually evaluate the cost of processing a particular material at a certain time. They check what we call the downtimes, they check improvement strategies. They also responsible to evaluate better ways to improve your project, and to also liaise with production managers to give them guidance in terms of the amount of output that are needed and the target rates and so forth. So in the morning, either the shift manager or the operations manager, they will allocate certain hours to the industrial or manufacturing engineers, and they will try to evaluate how the production managers ran with those hours. If we didn't meet the target, what actually halted us for not getting the right target? Was there any downtimes, and how can they be improved, so forth? So it's one of the best positions that you can route to, manufacturing engineers. And then we have also what we call quality control engineers. As we know, even yourself, when you're buying a certain product, you buy a certain cloth, you buy a certain equipment, you want the best quality. You can't buy things that are torn, things that are not conforming, things that look deceived, things that look deformed with your physical eyes. So as much as the plant and the operators, they are responsible for the quality of the material that they produce, we also need a quality control engineer nearby to give guidance and to give specifications of producing a certain product instantly, so at a certain department. So they will actually work hand in hand with quality inspectors to evaluate the processing of the material by doing physical inspections and using their rubrics to actually check whether the material is on spec or not. If not, they reject them and they go to the previous stage, or they totally recycle that particular item. So process quality engineers are very important because they are able to monitor whether are we producing products of good quality or not. And then you can also become an environmental engineer. With a degree in chemical engineer, you are able to now be able to engage with the government to actually form part of committees that actually sit down to draft policies and frameworks, because you understand different kinds of chemicals, you understand different sectors. It's easy for you to sit down with other disciplines such as environmental engineers to give guidance in terms of how we can mitigate certain pollution levels, how we can how different sectors or manufacturing firms can regulate or alleviate the pollution of certain substances. Um, in most cases, when you have a degree in chemical engineer, in order to occupy this, you might need to do an honors in environmental engineer so that you get a clear or solid backgrounds on frameworks and acts that are used in the government sectors for that. And then you can also become a process safety engineer. No plant can actually operate without a safety engineer. As much as we have our safety officers in the plant, it's very detrimental to actually, or very significant to have or hire a process safety engineer. A process safety engineer, it's someone who worked as a process engineer and understands different kinds of processing platforms and have experienced a whole lot of incidents, have witnessed a whole lot of incident in terms of safety. Therefore, they're the best people to give guidance in terms of what should be done, what kind of equipment should be bought, and they are there to actually help with drafting of safe work procedures, risk assessment, and they are mostly invited in HAZOP studies. Do you know what is HAZOP? And it's quite a big review meeting where all disciplines are assembled together to actually sit down to check um, the process after a certain time so that we mitigate safety incidents. Remember, there's no substitution to safety. It's very important to have a process safety engineer in the plant. And if you really have a strong desire and passion for engineering and safety, you can match the two and root for those kind of positions. And process engineers are also hired in the water sector. So you can either become a water engineer in a water and wastewater treatment plant, because you are able to actually give advice to certain scenarios in a wastewater treatment plant. You are the most needed because you understand the processing plant of treating water or treating wastewater, either whether it's wastewater or water from the mines. You are able to actually come with better strategies to remove any foreign or contaminants that exist in our water systems. And you can also become a sales engineer. This the most rewarding in terms of remunerations, because you would have started working as someone in a manufacturing firm as a process engineer. You have started working there. You understand how the material is processed. You understand all the bottlenecks that happen, and once you are satisfied with everything, you can apply for what we call sales and marketing engineers to sell those particular products that you have actually was part of in terms of processing them. So sales and marketing engineers, um, they travel around the world. They travel around the world to sell whether pumps or spirals or crushers or mills in metallurgical plants and all of those things. So in most cases, once you qualify to be a sales engineer, it means you are settled from my personal perspective, because you understand the dynamics that are happening in a manufacturing plant, and you also have developed skills on selling the distinctive properties of your product to the next person. You are able to also give a value of preposition of this particular product to the market. And those are some of the best positions that you can occupy as a chemical engineer in this field. And I also pointed out that it's easy to become a production manager when you hold a degree in chemical or metallurgical engineer, based on the sector that you are serving to. If you are serving in the mining area, obviously, sometimes in most cases, you are the best person to occupy a production manager position, especially if you have started working as a production supervisor, as a shift manager, and you understand the management side of things as well as the processing side of things quickly, then you can become a production manager. So tune in for the next videos that will be coming. And this one, I was just giving you a hint of where can you end when holding a degree in chemical engineering. And we have a whole lot of guys that ventured into financial institutions such as our accounting firms such as KPMG, Deloitte, and PwC that are still have undergraduate degrees in engineering that are doing very well in terms of giving advice to those accounting firms in terms of how they can manage their projects that are mostly related to engineering. So it's a bye from me now. Don't forget to subscribe on my YouTube channel and to share this to your platforms so that those that are in need of this information can easily reach it. Thank you.